If this message arrived too late, an empire would burn. No armies would clash. No warning bells would ring. Only silence and then chaos. Tonight, let us slow this moment down and follow a single rider through the darkness of the ancient world. The hoofbeats were a distant thunder in the night, a steady rhythm echoing through a narrow mountain pass. Cyrus felt the strain in every muscle and the quiet burn in his lungs, yet he did not slow. Far behind him, to the west, a rebellion was taking shape, a secret powerful enough to unravel the great king's dominion like a single pulled thread. Ahead of him stretched the only hope of preventing it. The road, not just any path, but the living artery of an empire, a ribbon of packed earth and stone winding over mountains and across open plains, connecting the glittering heart of Susa to distant, restless shores. Cyrus was only one link in a long, unbroken chain of riders and horses, a living pulse within the fastest mail system the ancient world had ever known. If he failed, if the message sealed within the leather pouch at his side did not reach the royal court before the moon completed its silent journey across the sky, order would give way to fire, and a peace built over generations would quietly shatter. He rode as the Persians had learned to ride, with patience for distance, not just hunger for speed. The horse beneath him was fresh, taken only hours before from a quiet way station where a drowsy attendant had exchanged a sweat-darkened mount for this new creature of sinew and steady will. These stations were the true genius of the system, placed a long day's ride apart, sometimes closer in the most dangerous stretches. Each was stocked with water, grain, and the finest horses raised in the king's pastures. A messenger did not own his journey. He owned only his present horse and the responsibility of the words he carried. Cyrus rode with no food and no spare cloak, only the authority of the king's seal, a mark that commanded doors to open, hands to assist, and roads to clear. He was not merely a man in the night. He was a voice given legs, and the empire waited, holding its breath for what he would say. The world blurred into a smear of olive groves, rocky outcrops, and the occasional startled glance from a shepherd tending flocks under the first hint of dawn. Cyrus's mind, however, was sharp, replaying the scene that had set him flying. He had been a junior scribe in the satrap's court at Sardis, a man who knew the shape of words on clay and parchment. When the Greek mercenary captain, his eyes shifting like a guilty hound, had whispered of plotted betrayal among the Ionian city governors, of promises made to Spartan agents, and ships being built in hidden coves, the satrap had turned ashen. The report was written in haste, sealed with the satrap's own ring, and placed into Cyrus's hands. "The royal road," the satrap had said, gripping his shoulders. "Only the royal road can save us. Ride for your life and for all our lives." And so he rode. The Persian postal system, the Angarium, was not a service for merchants or lovers' letters. It was the nervous system of the empire, created by the great King Darius to bind his vast lands from the Indus to the Nile. Messages of state, military orders, intelligence reports, these flew along its path with a speed that seemed supernatural to the outer world. Riders would pass the sacred words from one to the next, like a burning torch in a relay, never stopping for night or storm. Cyrus knew the stories, that a message could travel from the shores of the Aegean to the palace of Susa in the time it took for a caravan to lumber a fraction of the distance. He was living that story now, a single syllable in a sentence of urgency. The first day melted into a haze of sun and dust. He reached a way station as the sun dipped, his body screaming for rest. A fresh horse was ready before he had fully dismounted. The station master, a grizzled man with the scars of old campaigns, took one look at the king's seal on the pouch and waved him to the new saddle. "The next station is beyond the river ford," the man barked, handing him a skin of water and a lump of hard cheese. "The river is high from the mountain snows. Do not let the current take you. The king's word must not drown." Cyrus nodded, his throat too dry for speech, and kicked the new horse forward. The night ride was colder, the stars a frozen canopy above. He thought of the rebels, perhaps already moving, mustering troops, sending their own slow messengers along the coast. His advantage was the straight, maintained road and the endless supply of horseflesh. Theirs was the complacency of those who thought the empire slept. By the second day, the landscape began to change, the harsh mountains giving way to rolling uplands. He passed through villages where children pointed at the lone rider flying past like a demon, never pausing. At one station, a young handler, new to his post, fumbled with the bridle of the replacement horse. Cyrus, his patience worn to a thread, snapped, "Faster. Lives hang on your hands." The boy flushed and worked with renewed vigor. As Cyrus mounted, he saw the fear and pride in the boy's eyes, the understanding that he, too, was part of something immense. This was the other strength of the male. It was a system of people. Each link taught that the integrity of the whole depended on their minute, mundane duty. A loose girth strap could mean a fallen rider. A tired horse could mean a delay of hours, and hours could mean war. On the third day, disaster struck. A landslide from recent rains had buried a section of the road where it cut through a narrow gorge. Stone and mud blocked the path entirely. Cyrus's heart hammered against his ribs. To go around would cost a day, maybe more, through broken terrain where no stations waited. He stood for a moment, staring at the rubble, the despair a physical weight. Then he remembered his training. The Angarium had contingencies for such things. He dismounted and scrambled up the slope, looking for the marker stones. Yes, there it was, a small cairn of white stones set by the road builders. It pointed to a narrow goat track that wound up the gorge side. It was a bypass, steep and dangerous, but maintained for emergencies. Leading his horse, careful of its footing, he took the path. It took hours of brutal climbing, the horse skittish on the loose scree, but they emerged back onto the road beyond the blockage. The delay had cost him the better part of a day, but not all of it. He pushed the horse harder, feeling a new kind of dread. The stations became a blur of brief exchanges. The pouch shone, a nod, a new horse, a sip of water, and back into the saddle. His body learned to sleep in the saddle, to eat while riding, to become one with the motion of the gallop. He dreamed awake of the cool fountains of Susa, of presenting the message to the chancellor, of then sleeping for a week. But the dream was cut always by the image of Greek hoplites marching on Sardis, the satrap's palace in flames, the rebellion spreading like a stain across the map of the empire. The Persian peace, the Pax Persica, was a fragile thing, upheld by awe and by the certainty that the king's wrath could arrive with terrifying speed. That certainty was what he carried. He entered the fertile heartland of the empire, the road now a broad, well-trodden highway lined with poplar trees. Traffic increased. Farmers with carts, merchants with trains of donkeys, regiments of soldiers marching in disciplined columns, all made way for the lone rider with the determined stare and the dust-covered clothes. The king's couriers had right of way over all, even nobles in litters. He passed through a major city, the streets a cacophony of smells and sounds, but he did not slow. The clatter of his hooves on the cobbles scattering crowds. The station here was larger, a fortified building with barracks for a small garrison. The commander himself, a stern-eyed man with a forked beard, inspected the seal. "The road ahead is clear to the royal capital," he said, "but bandits have been bold in the foothills. They would prize that pouch for the gold its information might bring to our enemies. Ride with this." He handed Cyrus a light javelin. Cyrus tied it to his saddle, a sliver of deadly reassurance. The attack came at dusk, as he entered a forested region 2 stations from Susa. 3 men on horseback, poorly mounted but desperate, burst from the trees. "The courier, take the pouch," one yelled. Cyrus did not hesitate. He veered his horse off the road, crashing through underbrush. He was a scribe, not a warrior, but he had the best horse in the empire beneath him. He urged it into a full gallop, weaving through the trees. A thrown axe whistled past his head. He fumbled for the javelin, pulled it free, and without looking back, hurled it in the general direction of his pursuers. A cry of pain told him it had found a mark. The others hesitated, and in that moment, Cyrus broke back onto the open road and kicked his horse into a frenzy of speed. He did not look back again until the lights of the next way station glimmered in the distance. His horse was lathered and blowing, but he had outrun them. The pouch was safe. The final stretch. Susa was now a concept, a magnetic pull in his soul. The land flattened, the air grew warmer, scented with irrigation canals and flowering orchards. The road was packed smooth as a palace floor. He changed horses for the last time at a station that was almost a palace itself, with painted walls and a fountain in the courtyard. The station master bowed as he handed over the reins. "The king is in residence, courier. Your message is expected." How could it be expected? Cyrus wondered. But then he understood. The system itself had sent word ahead. Riders coming the other way, perhaps with queries from the capital, had carried news of his urgent passage. The empire was talking to itself through him. The walls of Susa rose, gleaming with blue and green glazed bricks in the afternoon sun. The gates, towering and immense, stood open. Guards, recognizing the gait of a spent courier on a fresh horse, cleared the crowded entrance. He rode through streets of breathtaking grandeur, past ziggurats and vast administrative buildings, directly toward the citadel. At the final gate to the royal complex, he all but fell from his saddle. His legs buckled and 2 guards caught him. "Message," he croaked, pulling the pouch from his hip. "For the chancellor, from Sardis. Rebellion." The guards' eyes widened. One took the pouch and ran inside. The other helped Cyrus to a bench. He sat, his whole body trembling, the world spinning. He had done it. He had covered a distance that would take a normal traveler 3 moons in just over a week. The system had worked. Inside, in a hall cooled by woven fans, the chancellor broke the seal and read the clay tablets. His face grew grave. He immediately summoned generals and scribes. Orders were written, sealed, and handed to a waiting cadre of fresh couriers. These men, just like Cyrus had been a week ago, sprinted to the stables. By nightfall, A dozen messages were flying back along the royal road to the western satraps, authorizing the movement of troops, the fortification of cities, the arrest of conspirators. The king's response was swift, decisive, and it traveled at the same incredible speed. The rebellion, when it dared to raise its head, found the iron fist of Persia already clenched and waiting. It was crushed in its infancy, with minimal bloodshed, because a message had crossed an empire faster than thought possible. Cyrus, after days of sleep and recovery, was summoned before the chancellor. He was offered a promotion, a position in the capital archives, but to his own surprise, he refused. "The road, Your Excellence," he said, "I have felt its pulse. I wish to be part of it, to oversee a section of the way stations." The chancellor, an old man who understood the love of the mechanism, nodded. "The Angarium is the lifeblood of our peace. Go, then, and ensure its heart beats strong." Cyrus left the palace, not as a scribe, but as a guardian of the way. He walked to the city gates and looked west, along the endless, straight road. Somewhere out there, another rider was pounding the earth, carrying another piece of the king's will. The Persian mail did not sleep. It was the whisper that held the shout of empire at bay, the fastest mail in the ancient world, a testament to the genius of order in a chaotic age. And as long as riders like Cyrus kept faith, it would forever be the thread that stitched continents together.